Hello and welcome to intrepid viewers everywhere. Let me just check my speakers here so you can hear my dulcet tones. Now, there won't have been any ads in front of this video because I'm having issues with my content apparently. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And so today I'm going to talk about the Derek Chauvin trial and gun control and all the things you're not supposed to talk about and not attempt to get ads up. So my revenue's dropped in half, but I don't care because I love you guys so immensely. I am here for you. Okay, now, what's going on? Before I launch into this, I just want to say regular viewers will know I don't let Australia off the hook in these issues, right? Especially not race relations. We have a shocking record, including a claim to fame, the highest number of Indigenous juveniles in detention anywhere in the world. There you go. But I grew up in Queensland in the 50s and 60s, which was the Australian equivalent of Texas. It was a segregated state at that point. And I went to school with 1,500 Karens. And so that's all I'll say for now. But I could tell you stories that would make your hair stand on end. Really, I could. It even shocks other Australians because if you were brought up in one of the more reasonable states, the stories aren't quite as grotesque. But if you grew up in a frontier state, it was just like the worst of America. Okay, it's just the numbers are different. The deaths in custody, shocking. Okay, so moving on to America and what's happening with the Chauvin trial. So viewers have kept me abreast, particularly those who live in Minneapolis. Hello, Red McGregor and others. Thank you for giving me blow-by-blow descriptions of the atmosphere there, because that's really important to have that sort of hands-on look. So let's look, because the Chauvin trial, we all know as grown-ups and everything else, it's not the beginning and end of the story, regardless of the outcome of the trial, but it is symbolic. It's massively symbolic. So we're going to look at what is the role of this trial in the bigger picture of doing anything about these truly, truly horrendous, seemingly shameless executions that go on routinely, where police officers feel they are justified in just shooting unarmed black men in the back, and in the case of Breonna Taylor, women. So let's look at this. What is the actual role? Will it have any lasting effects? What is it about this trial? Okay. I'm using the Toth deck because it's the sort of subject that deserves it. Okay. Right. I'm doing a slightly bigger spread than normal. Yeah, okay. So the center card, the signifier for this is the Five of Pentacles, which is traditionally in the Rider-Waite and other decks, loss and disappointment. In this deck, it's worry. The authorities should be worried. I really hope they're worried. May they be very worried. May they not sleep at night for worry. Please spare me. So it is causing concern. It's getting harder and harder to take the line, oh, this is just one bad apple, or this is one rogue cop, or the guy appeared to have a gun, all that stuff. They're worried about the effects of this trial. Past attitudes. This is revealing they couldn't care less. Past attitudes, suspended, business as usual, nothing going on, right? That's their past attitude to it all. Not bringing these guys to justice, just going on. Their past actions, strength in numbers, strength in supporting the police no matter what. That includes the GOP and even the top echelons of the Dems and every other American who just shrugged and thought it was okay. You know, he must have done something wrong or it wouldn't have happened, or, you know, police officers are under enormous stress, which they are. But the issue is, they're not supposed to be gang members. They're supposed to be professionals to handle the stress, right? So you don't shoot someone in the back. You have another range of responses. But this is how they were in the past. What's happening now? Power. The Four of Pentacles, hunkering down. I'm not entirely happy with this, in the sense of, I think they're still protecting their own. That's the police protecting their own, even though they've hung Chauvin out to dry, because simply it was too much, you know, and the world watched in real time. And as I've said before, if George Floyd had been shot, we would never have heard his name. It was the fact he was killed in slow motion. It was a snuff movie. It was an execution. There is no way to dress this up, right? But it's a culture that allows this. It's the American culture and it's the American police culture that has allowed this. So what does it mean? It means that if you start as a cop, or certainly if you're a Black or Hispanic police officer, you come in thinking you can make a difference and representing and so forth, but the culture is so strong of that deep mentality that it's rotten to the core. It is absolutely rotten to the core. They still have the power. So what can we learn from this? Here is the card of failure. It's a failure for them to maintain this power in the face of everything that is happening. If once a year there was a police shooting of this type, or even a civilian shooting of this type, that would be one thing, but it's not. You know, you can hardly open the news on any day of the week and not find another one. So it's a failure, a deep-seated systemic failure. Coming forward, the Prince of Swords. This, which is also the Knight of Swords. See all the people pulling the strings, pulling the big guy. I think in a way it's long overdue, and Jesse Jackson, having gone to Minneapolis, seems to have made a difference in the sense of calming people down and so forth, and more power to him. I think it's time to not let this slide anymore. It's immoral to let it slide anymore. Now, where were the other reverends? Why aren't there 1,000 reverends? Excuse me, I have to put you on pause. Hang on a minute. I have to find pause. Okay, I'm back. But I was saying, why aren't there religious leaders in every city in America, and for that matter, the world, going out there, joining hands with the protesters. Why isn't that happening? The failure of church leadership. Forget the evangelicals, because fundamentalists are fundamentalists. I'm talking about every other denomination, right? They should be there in numbers. There should be vigils. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if it's happening, please. But it needs white people, which we'll get to with, oh, the dog's going crazy. It needs white people to stand up in huge numbers, who know this is wrong, right? It shouldn't just be left to the African American and the Hispanic populations to fight this. And I know a lot of you guys, I'm talking to the converted with intrepid viewers, of course you understand this. But I still have the question, you know, paramedics, why can't 100 paramedics, doctors, teachers, different groups, the unions, where are they at this protest to make it a people's protest, right? It needs to broaden out at the base, okay? So I'm just going to use my other cards here for a moment. I want to get the astrological energy around the Chauvin trial. And then I'm going to move on to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Anglo-Saxon values, whatever that may mean. So the energy around the Chauvin trial. This is interesting energy. I heard from a couple of viewers that after Jesse Jackson's visit and stuff, people were walking around saying, I love you and I stand with you. This is really important. We underestimate, in something as horrendous as this, we underestimate the power of love. And I'm not saying that as an old hippie, because I'm not. I'm an old radical. But we must never underestimate the power of love. So here we have Libra hearing two sides of the story. I think this should be a conversation in every school, in every church, in every home, getting both sides of the story. We have Capricorn, which is on the one hand representing the old way of thinking and doing, but it also represents fundamental decency, but the need to act and to work. You wouldn't know it by this image. Okay, she looks like a lap dancer in Tucson or something, but Capricorn is about Saturn and about learning your lessons and about discipline. And Cancer. Cancer is about the family, and that's your biological family, your extended family, your blended family, your community family, your whole national family needs to express this. So at the end of that ugliness, the take-home message is still that love is in fact the only thing that can really change this stuff. So that's food for thought. So let's move on now. And before we leave sort of the uglies, how is Marjorie Taylor Greene and things? I've heard they've backed off. I don't know if they've really backed off from that ridiculous statement about Anglo-Saxon values. What in hell's name are Anglo-Saxon values? What do they mean by that? What do they mean? Right. Well, if you ask them, they say we're about families, like non-Anglo people don't have families, or they don't really care as much as you do, Marjorie, about your family. I mean, it's mind-bendingly stupid. So they mean families. They also mean code for white. When they say Anglo-Saxon, they don't just mean white in the sense of fair-skinned Italians or Greeks. They really mean white. Okay? Right. So white seems to have very special values. I mean, please spare me. It's also code for being Christian. Right. These fundamentalists are so a million miles for any concept I have of Jesus' teaching and Christianity that you couldn't even bridge the gap, you know, with a very long bridge. It's like only Christians are really, you know, in control of themselves or something, you know. It's really weird and quite perverse. And the third thing I think they mean in their code for Anglo-Saxon values is democracy. Yeah, that same democracy they're trying to dismantle, that democracy. So what are the pillars of democracy? Well, the pillars of democracy traditionally are having an independent media. We're all struggling with that because so much of the media is corporately owned. You know, CNN 25 years ago was amazing, and now it's just talking heads and the next ad break, you know, but they all mean well. You need an independent media. You need an independent court system, well, with a stacked Supreme Court and William Barr for the last 3 years, and so forth, you know, but the assumption is an independent judiciary is necessary for democracy. A third pillar of democracy, and I think this is very timely, viewers, is to accept the result of an election, right? So third world countries who struggle to transition to democracies often have big problems with people demonizing the opposition, winner takes all. Do we see anything familiar here? You have to accept the result of an election to actually be a democracy. So I would also take this moment to point out two of the largest democracies in the world. The biggest is India. I must do a video on India. Is India, followed by Indonesia. So one is a mixture of various religions, and Indonesia is predominantly Muslim, but has very reasonable, safe elections, safer and more reasonable than what we have seen in the United States of America in the last 4 years. So it's all this rubbish, you know. Oh, we need more sociology in school. Okay, so let's see. Marjorie Taylor Greene and the others, and they're the reinvented Tea Party and all of that. Will the Republicans actually squash them and try and claim back the party? Or what, right? Will they become a new force or an old force? Let me get my question straight. Will this new Ku Klux Klan type caucus take off or not? What about this America First? America First, meaning white America only. Let's see. What's going to happen with them? Look they're not going to disappear. There's nothing here about them, unfortunately, you know, evaporating. But there are pointers here to where their power isn't. In the middle, what used to be the Justice card in other decks is the Adjustment card in the Thoth deck. They're going to have to adjust. I think they've stepped out too far, because we can't forget all the tensions behind the scene with the GOP. You've got so many GOP representatives who are terrified of their own electorates, or who are happy to represent the worst possible aspects of human nature and call it conservatism. So there needs to be an adjustment. They're going to, you know, shift a little bit. Underneath this, the Three of Wands, they're going to continue, and they see themselves as virtuous and continuing, but I would think with shrunk numbers to some extent. But there's such a loud voice. I wish a lot of these channels and news outlets and stuff would just stop, not a blanket ban on them, but stop reporting them. I'm thrilled. Jerry Falwell Jr. is being sued by Liberty University for 10 million for running off with, you know, he had allegedly, only not so much allegedly, the affair with the pool cleaner or the gardener or whoever it was. And then he tried to get around it by saying it was just his wife having an affair. And then the guy himself saying, no, he was part of it. You know, so this smut and hypocrisy will take hold. The Queen of Discs and the Queen of Pentacles, in this case, I don't think it's a person. I think it represents money, Pentacles more generally. I think Republican donors will pull away. I think there'll be, I think a lot of out and out Trump supporters had their fingers burnt with being plagued by the Trump campaign, begging for money, taking their money, repeat withdrawals without permission, all that ugly stuff. The NRA, corruption. I think money that has kept them all afloat is going to bring them undone. I do. And I think it's time for all countries in the world to actually revisit that position that churches don't pay tax. That might have made sense in 1950 when 90% of the population went to church, but not anymore. But there you go. I think it's money. They won't get financial backing is what I'm trying to say. Their energy overall is the Mad Helicopter Knight. So this is the Knight of Swords. It's impetuous. They'll start turning on each other, just like the guy from the Oath Keepers, you know, just like the guy from the Proud Boys. They're all macho knuckle draggers, beating their chests. And then as soon as they're hauled in, it's like, how much can I tell you? You know, these guys are such wimps underneath this vacant macho bravado. So this is the out of control night. They will continue. And the Ace of Cups, this is their appeal. They go for the emotion, not the rational, not even the faith. They go for people's emotional sort of the yawning gap in people's emotions, in the sense of, oh, well, my life is sort of poverty-stricken and hopeless, and now I know I can blame it on immigrants, or I can blame it on anything at all without looking at my own politicians. This is the gushing version of the Ace of Cups, which can be a lovely card, but coming as it does in conjunction with the out of control vengeful Knight, it's the gushing Ace of Cups, out of control emotion. Okay, now, while I'm doing all the things I'm not supposed to talk about, I'm going to talk about gun control and, well, is there such a thing really? What were the figures? Last year, 2020, there's so many 20s in this. This is really interesting, okay? The highest number of people killed in gun violence in America in 20 years was 20,000 people. 20,000. Used to be 11,000, a mere 11,000. Now it's 20,000. That doesn't include the 24,000 suicides by gun, right? You're up to 44,000. And it's the highest in 20 years. And one of the school shootings was the second time they've had a mass shooting. Now, we all know that you can't reason with these people, right? We all know that. So let's see what it says. Is there any hope in the next 4 years of even a tiny bit of gun control? What about the governor who ruled for permitless carry before the 19-year-old, you know, shot all those people? I mean, it's crazy, America. It's really crazy. And I know you guys who are watching this channel get that. But the Dems have to do something while they're in. And 70-odd% of Americans don't have a problem with background checks or those who have a history of domestic violence and stuff. Most people do not support the carrying of automatic weapons, you know. I know, look, the 6-year-old who shot the 9-year-old in the car while the woman was shopping, she wasn't related to either of them. But what did the 6-year-old find in the glove box? It wasn't a packet of Smarties. It was a gun with bullets. I mean, really. So is there any hope for America in gun control? Actually, I might move to my other cards for this, so there's a sporting chance. I still get angry when I think about that. That's sort of Anglo-Saxon values stuff. There are more Christians in Latin America and the Philippines than there are in America. But they wouldn't count because they're not Anglo-Saxon. Okay, gun control. Is there any hope for gun control? Okay, let's have a look here. Sorry. Well, oh, thank God I drew another card. Not straight away, of course. There will be talk, there will be plans. All right. The Queen of Wands, I think this is a woman, not a famous woman like Pelosi or something, but some woman or women could take the lead on this issue. Young people also have a role to play. This is the Emma Gonzalez, the David Hoggs, those super articulate young people who have experienced such horror, speaking up and speaking out. There's the being out in the cold. Now, does this mean people who are asking for gun control are out in the cold, which is the situation now? Or is it a matter of isolating those who are radically opposed to gun control and making them out in the cold? Again, the church is illuminated. Where is the church in this conversation? Where is the church? This is my new mantra. But the final card I pulled is the world. And although it can mean the world, and the world does watch America and shake its collective head and going, really? Really? You think this is all right? Really? We don't understand it. more than that, it's the end of a whole cycle and the beginning of a new one that rests with young people here. I'm going to stick my neck out and say, if the Dems try and just introduce anything, no matter how small, they'll get slammed. Make it a referendum of the whole of America. Have a referendum. I don't know if you have them in America. I don't know what you call them. It's sometimes called a plebiscite. It's when you take an issue outside of the election cycle to the people. People don't have to vote, but they can vote and be heard. I think it needs a referendum on just some core issues. Don't try for too much. Just maybe the banning of assault weapons or something, and background checks. Leave it at that. And you might get a surprise result. And then you can go back to these ammosexuals, as someone called them, gun crazies, and say, well, actually 74% of the American people think it should happen. And the Dems could then use that as leverage and do something, and do it. I'm not seeing it in the next 5 minutes, but I'm putting it out there. Okay, you guys, I'm going now, but I hope to see you really soon. So thanks for your support. Love you. Can't wait to see you next time. So you take care now. Oh, I'm going to also, next video, do that thing of channeling someone. I'm working on lifting my skill base, but this was quite a long video, so I'm going to stop it there today. You take care.